Welcome to the Your Brother podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
How's it going tonight, Dan?
Get some audios fairly crisp and deep tones on the Oh
Must be
Brother
my
podcast.
magnetic voice.
We both sound like we're way down in the lower register of the Oh Brother
Yeah,
podcast. Mike, I want to set the scene. It's 1989. Batman is tearing up the box office in the summer of 89, which
right.
came out in June. We did a episode on that, a 35th anniversary tribute. If you want to go back and check that out, which you can do by just clicking on this QR code, scanning this QR code, and going right to the Oh Brother podcast and liking and subscribing out there. More on that later. But and then Mike, I want to say it's 1990, and I just moved down from Massachusetts,
Okay.
and I find this incredibly cheap place for rent. Oh, wait a minute. It was your house actually. And I was you were kind enough to let me live with you for a
It
bit.
was a nice house because you had your own,
I had like a loft.
yeah,
It was pretty sweet. Yeah. But one of my vivid memories from back then was, again, you were always ahead of the curve technology-wise,
yeah,
and this was
till
no.
now.
Yeah. But well, I mean, sort of, but it depends, certain things, right? Your
Yeah.
Criterion are all over it, but yeah, with the new iPhone, maybe on that update, not so much. But one of those, things that you, were an early adopter of was, of course, laser discs,
Yeah.
and does this g I know you had The Abyss on laser disc, I know you did,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
think that might be I don't remember seeing it in the theater, I think this may have been the way that I first saw it, I can't remember, unless you
I
remember us seeing it
I think we both watched it for the first time
on
on that.
Laserdisc.
Yep.
Okay, interesting.
Because
Okay.
I did not see it in the theater.
You didn't see it in the theater, alright, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure about that. Of course, written and directed by James Cameron,
And
uh,
this is the new 4K edition that came out in
4K.
2023.
Yes, and actually, I wanna mention that because I, of course, have the digital version of that, thanks to the physical copy you just held up. Another inheritance. And, it's got the theatrical release, it also has the special edition version, which we'll talk about as we get into the episode. And, we've been talking a lot about Criterion collections on the podcast recently, and though this, to be clear, is not a Criterion,
Right.
collection, release, there's actually a lot of content on there, even on the, digital release, and now short of a commentary.
Right. Which
Other
he's
than
never done.
Yeah, so other than that, there's, like, 3 featurettes. One of them is, at least an hour long, I think longer than
Yes.
that, and
Yes.
then there's tons of other goodies on there if you wanna take a deep dive. I mean, there's just a lot of sort of behind the scenes content for anybody that's into that. So I just kinda wanted to point that out, that it's both digital and on the physical release, which I'm assuming they mirror each other in terms of
Yeah,
the content. Yeah.
you're getting everything I'm
That
getting
yeah,
on the physical.
yeah.
Sometimes you don't, which is
Someti
why
That's right.
I prefer
Now
physical.
Mike, 8989 is when this film comes out, August 9th, 1989,
And it was
and
not ready for theaters.
no,
Should
well,
say that up front.
talk a little bit about that, yeah.
Well, this was an underwater movie. You can look to James Cameron for after this, he did Titanic, he did, Avatar: Way of Water,
Yeah.
but at this time, something on this magnitude hadn't been done underwater, and he wanted to do it without special effects, although
Mhm.
that was basically impossible.
Did you see the movie that he references in the excuse me, the interview, The Deep? Have you seen The Deep?
No. Oh, yeah, I have. I have it on Arrow 4K.
Okay, because he
So
references that in the 2023 interview on that disc.
and, Al something or other
Giddings.
Giddings worked on The Deep, and he consulted him about shooting underwater, and it was kind of it was a nightmare, and if you watch the the behind the scenes content, which you just referenced. The first 2 pieces are relatively new, and then the other piece goes back a bit, and you can tell from the interviews, this was a nightmare.
Well, so much so, Mike, that this was a running joke on the set. What they referred to it as the abuse.
The abuse, son
Son
of
of
a
a son of a bis.
yeah,
Right.
and you got to see on that hour-long featurette called, I have it written down somewhere, but, anyway, Ed Harris's only interview, he hated his experience on this film. Now, it doesn't come out, although the way this feature goes is you see a little bit of him and then another actor and then another actor, and then he comes back, and each time he comes back, it gets more negative and negative and negative. He actually took a swing at Cameron during the making of this.
Yeah, that's actually they neither of them have ever confirmed that. So I know that rumor is out there. It's been out there
Right,
for a long time, but that really has never been confirmed. And kind of what you're referring to is, a little incident where Ed Harris, oh, I don't know, almost died on the making of
right,
the film, right? There's
right,
this underwater sequence, of course, where he doesn't there's a lot of course, as you mentioned, Al Giddings and all of these other divers that are in the water,
right.
huge safety precautions being taken, but someone doesn't get to Ed in time with the
Yeah, and if you're
regulator and
filming, right, you've got this box.
yeah.
Those divers or those people who are in charge of safety have to be out of the frame.
Hmm.
So for them to get to the actor, it takes a few minutes. And Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, did I get that right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
She has a sequence where she's being yanked by Ed Harris without any regulator, without anything.
Hmm.
And you notice in the making of, there's no interview with her. Her quote is the making the abyss was a lot of things. Fun was not one of them.
Yeah, she wasn't in that, but there are several interviews of her at the time when the film came out.
Yeah. And again, they all had kind of near death experiences, including Cameron, who was
Hmm.
in the water 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. This guy is one of the most insane movie makers you'll ever come
But
across.
he's also one of the most intelligent. I mean, this guy,
Absolutely.
and an engineering background. His brother Mike was, working on the film too. Made a lot of the underwater vehicles that they use, the robotic vehicles. So he's a brilliant guy. And it's funny because I I told you this before we had set the date to record. All I could think about rewatching the film was the Titan submersible implosion that happened a
Came
couple
up.
of years ago. As of
Yes.
this was in 2023 this happened, and just devastating. And there's a sequence in the film that sort of harkens to that,
Yes.
and I feel like it hits differently now
Yeah.
seeing
To
it,
me, after watching the making of the 2 featurettes and the really long, making of, it's amazing people didn't get seriously injured or drown.
Right, yeah. No, for sure. But, I wanna dispute a little bit of what you're saying. I mean, yeah, and, Gail Ann Hurd, who was the producer on the film, some folks might know she was behind The Walking Dead and,
Yeah.
a very successful producer, and she was, very young at the time as they all were at that point, or certainly younger. And but they're all I watched a ton of interviews with a lot of the cast, and they actually they speak equally favorably about their experience making the film, as challenging as it was and as
Right.
dangerous as it could be at some times.
Right.
I mean, Michael Bean, for example, talks about enjoying the experience and all the things that he learned
He's an
filming.
exception, I think, to this because most of them, there's one guy, the older guy, he basically goes off and he's like, you know, this was horrible. This was and there's another guy that's really tall. I don't they're supporting actors, and I haven't seen him since, but
Jammer, the guy that plays Jammer.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have a lot of good things, and the woman you just mentioned, I felt like in the interviews I watched, she was answering the questions almost defensively, specifically defending Cameron, and I get it. I mean, nobody worked harder than him, but he was a young guy, and he was very demanding of the
Mhm.
actors. So I can see them, getting rubbed the wrong way. Michael Bihn's the only one that's worked with them since.
Has he worked with him since?
Yeah, he worked in Terminator 2. He had some scenes he
Oh, I
shot.
didn't okay, I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, because this is post Terminator and, post Aliens,
right.
actually,
It's after Aliens, before Terminator 2.
too, right. But again, uh, you know, I know what you're saying, those interviews with her, she does seem to be defending him, which I get. Um, but, again, Ed Harris, even himself, uh
I think
I just don't want it to paint it as though certainly it wasn't a cakewalk. Probably the
no.
most difficult filming experience anybody certainly had up to that point, and maybe since, quite frankly, because just the conception was insane, right?
Well,
Talk about how like where they end up filming this and how they stumble on this location.
it's this bizarre location in South Carolina.
Gaffney, South Carolina.
Yeah, and there Dan's got a picture of it. They're looking at this other spot, and then off
Mhm.
in the distance, Cameron sees, what you're showing on screen, which was actually a nuclear
Reactor
s
core. It was like an empty
right, that
reactor
was
core.
not finished, and
Right.
he's like, "If we fill that with water, we can kinda create a closed set instead," because again, Hollywood's being cheap here, and they don't wanna pay for the set, so they wind up converting this into a set, which wind up costing them probably the same amount if they had just built it.
That's what I started to think. I'm like, okay, at some point it had to be, I mean, did they really save any money on this thing, given all the problems that they had
Right.
throughout the production?
And actors were asked to do things that no actor they had to get certified as deep sea divers to work
Sure.
on the film.
Right.
That's not something they teach in acting school, you
Right.
know? And
Right.
Ed Harris had worked on something else, I forget the movie, but something that included, deep sea diving. So he
Right.
was kind of a veteran, and I get in the interview from him that the only reason he finished this was he took it as a personal challenge.
That's what I was going to bring up when you were okay. That thank you. That's the point I was going to bring up is in the one of the interviews, Cameron talks about how as demanding as he was, and that is spoken about throughout, and they all
Yeah,
sort of
even
reference
he
it.
he even he admits it.
Well, yes, but what he also talks about is the fact that he'd do 5, 6 takes, print it, we got it. But with Ed was such a perfectionist, he
Right,
was never satisfied, and then there
right,
was a point where you hear James Cameron said, as the as the head of the production, he just eventually has to say, "Okay, moving on, next
right,
scene," you know?
right.
So it goes both ways, I think, with the experience, but,
Yeah, and I think
but
you
isn't
saw
it was
Ed Harris.
insane.
Yeah, Ed Harris talks about driving home one night, pulling
Mhm,
over by the side of the road and just breaking down crying.
right.
I
I
mean,
can't even imagine, I mean, again, you might as well have been in the blackness of the ocean because of the way all the things they did to make it feel like that. He talks about Cameron talks about this one amateur PA or something on the film that comes up with
yes,
this idea of these
yes.
black beads. Mike, talk about that. That was fascinating.
Yeah, what happens when you shoot in water, the reflection acts like a mirror
Mhm.
image, so you have to darken it. and they were trying to use a tarp, they were trying to cover it, they couldn't figure it out, and then, like you say, this PA says, "Hey, if we use these," I don't even know what they're called, but they're like little black beads. They
Yeah,
needed 2 tons
at
of these
least.
beads
Yeah.
to cover the surface, and they had to leave openings in case, you know, somebody had to surface and take the, because they
Yeah.
had to constantly monitor how much air they had in their tanks.
And with these beads, they could do that. They could resurface, break the
Yes,
surface, no problem, as opposed to putting some sort of covering
right.
over the water. They did have this tarp covering the tank that was the size of like Oklahoma or something they talk about.
It was
And
huge.
and even that in the storm that happens, not in the film, like in real life, this storm, this
Yes,
thunderstorm and lightning and everything, he had to end the day. Everybody had to get the hell out of the pool. Cameron says, "I'm just standing there at the end, seeing this tarp be ripped apart and just
yes.
shredded," you know?
So, ultimately, what did they have to do? Because of the tarp getting destroyed, they wind up having to shoot nights anyway, which
Yes.
is what they were trying to avoid.
Which brings along with it its own challenges.
Yeah,
You know, people are circadian rhythm is all messed up and
bingo.
so on and so forth. Before we get too much further, Mike, give us the plot of the film.
Yeah, basically, it starts off where it's kind of a Cold War film between
Mhm.
us and Russia. And it starts with this submarine that, you know, gets off course and crashes. Now, they're on an oil rig, okay, but they're the closest ones. There's this big storm coming, which we just talked about.
Mhm.
And the military can't get there in time to save the people in the sub. So they decide to take Ed Harris and his crew and say, look it, you can get there in half the time and save some lives. So they enter on this journey into almost the abyss to try to save these sailors that are, you know, as we find out, they had already been dead.
Mhm.
So it was a no-win from the start.
Yeah, and there's all these warheads down there.
Yes.
So then you've got talk about Michael Bean and that crew, right? These Marines that come in.
There's these Marines that have their mission is to rescue these nuclear weapons, right? But
Mhm.
nobody else knows about it except these guys. Now, Michael Bean goes rogue at one point because the communication gets cut off in the storm. So he takes it upon himself to say, we're going to, level 3 or whatever the hell it's called. And we're going
Mhm.
to go rescue one of these nuclear warheads, unbeknownst to everyone else who, once they find out, it becomes kind of an us against them situation.
Yeah, great setup. This now we mentioned that there's the theatrical version, which is what I watched. We talked about this. If you watch the special edition, I'll watch the theatrical. I ended up technically watching both, but
Well, once you watch the extras, they kind of fill in the gaps
that's true. That's correct.
because
Yes.
people that they did test this and they had to test it without the effects finish because
Hmm.
ILM, who was brand new at the time,
Yes.
George Lucas's company,
Yeah.
were doing the effects and they couldn't finish it in time. So people are watching it and they're kind of being, showed an unfinished product. And they didn't like it because it didn't make sense without I don't know if I want to get into it, what they were shooting, but it was these tidal waves
Yes. Big wave. Yeah.
that were
Yeah.
being controlled by aliens.
Yeah.
Becomes
These
an alien story.
it does. They call them these NTIs, kind of
Yes.
extraterrestrials living down at the bottom of the ocean, which is fascinating because we were just talking about this a couple days ago. There was a guy who has just done a documentary, I believe, right?
For Netflix.
Is it out yet?
I don't think it's out yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing it.
God, I should have grabbed his name and the name of that documentary, but he was on the Real Time with Bill Maher show recently, and they get into talking about this. And in one point during the interview with Maher and this director, he talks about sort of the ocean as the most unexplored Uh, te
80% of the ocean has
yes,
not been seen by us.
right. So now when you go back and see The Abyss, and we should say we just passed what, the 35th, no, 36th
Yeah,
anniversary. Yeah,
yeah.
36th anniversary. It's hard to believe.
And
Uh,
it was re-released once they,
mhm,
James Cameron kept working on the film and went back to ILM, had them finish it. So it
mhm,
was re-released in theaters in '93, which ultimately, you know, made it turn a profit because
mhm.
this was a $70 million budget, which was insane at the time.
Yeah, it is. I'm actually surprised it wasn't a little bit more, to be honest, with everything they went through. Although, Cameron talks about like those black beads that you described, that
Yeah,
actually turned out to be a lot cheaper option than some of the other things that they were considering, not to mention safer and all those sorts of
right,
things.
right.
Are you familiar with, because this was, as you said, in the special edition version, this whole sequence where it kind of involves this tidal wave and things. Are you familiar with the pants scene? Do you know about this?
I don't.
Okay, it's very legendary. Um, and this involves the tidal wave sequence in the film. I'm gonna play a very short clip of this, and I want you and the viewers, those that are if you're listening and not watching, make sure that you come back and watch the episode on YouTube. But stay focused on the bottom left corner of your screen, folks. Bottom left corner. Pay close attention.
I can already picture this.
Did you miss? See, you
I
didn't.
missed it.
Yeah, okay. So there's this sequence, right? You see all these people running from this tidal wave. The
Right.
bottom left corner. See this
Okay.
kid right here, in the blue t-shirt and shorts?
Yeah.
Well, his buddy decides it'd be a good idea to pull his pants down. Look at this. Look, he de-pantses the guy. He de-pantses the guy, and it's in the film.
It's in
It's
the film.
in the finished
See, I'm so
product.
busy looking at the wave,
Right.
I never looked down at the people.
I think I had heard about that and forgot about it. So when I was reminded of it, I went back to the special. I said, "There it is. It's in the movie. It's just hilarious."
Now, ironically, I was asking you, when did we watch this last? Because even though I've had the 4K for since 2023,
Mhm,
I don't think I watched it till now. And I thought back to the laser disc days and watching it then. I'm like, I
mhm.
don't think I've seen it since then.
Yeah.
Now I have a much fonder memory of it back then than watching it in today's world, only because the aliens look so kind of pedestrian for me.
Yeah, it isn't even the look of the aliens, it's the alien. It's the fact that they even showed it. So this is to jump ahead a little bit. Now, Mike, there's some movies, a couple that came to mind while I was watching the
Oh, I
film.
bet I can guess one.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
One of them is The Champ with, John Voight
John Voight.
and a very young Ricky Schroeder at the time. A fantastic film. I would
Yeah.
encourage folks I saw that when I was just a kid. Looked a little like Ricky Schroeder at that time, I think. But, um, the ending of that film, the ending of, The Godfather Part 3 came to mind, the sequence with, Al on the steps right after the ballet, the opera,
Okay.
and but where I'm going with that is that's the kind of ending I wanted for The Abyss. I think
Yeah.
they won 15, 20 minutes too long with the story,
Totally agree. To
right?
make
And
it a happy ending, sort of.
it's sort of, but it also there was a lot more socio-political commentary and this environmental kind of
Yeah.
message and
Yep.
things, which no surprise with James Cameron, but it just and you hear it in the interviews from a lot of the cast. They're like, when did it become like ET? It
Right.
made
See,
no
I put the
sense.
poster up.
Yes, it really made no
What
sense.
I was thinking of was Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah, good one.
Steven Spielberg is so brilliant. Jaws, the reason Jaws is so good, I think, is because the shark malfunctioned and it
Mhm.
made him do brilliant things to scare us when we thought we were seeing a shark and we weren't.
Yes.
Close Encounters, the same idea, never shows the aliens. And then because of, crowd wanting it, they release a cut where Dreyfus actually the movie ends originally with Dreyfus boarding this craft, and we don't see the aliens, and it ends. But then they wanna try to take it to the next level, so they extend it and they show and it was goofy,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
That's what happened here, I think.
It is. They could have, again, 10, 15 minutes earlier, they could have ended it and not even had to edit it much, just cut out all that other bit.
Yeah,
And I think that raises the rating for me on this film, whereas right now I'm like, it's like a B minus,
yeah.
somewhere in there, but I think this could be an A film had they just left that out.
And ironically, it's I think the only James Cameron film, this is as of 2019, so it must still be accurate,
Mhm.
not to debut at number 1.
Mm.
And think about with all the movies tanking, and we just had like 3 or 4 go down in flames, big Julia Roberts
Mhm.
movie, Sydney Sweeney movie. Nobody can pull an audience
Mhm.
into the theater right now.
Right.
And, we just watched Frankenstein on Netflix. And I think the reason that got a theatrical release was to make it available for an Academy Award. You have to be in the theater.
That's a great point. That's a great
So,
point.
I don't know, Dan. We've talked about it many times about the
Mhm.
future of the box office. It's really scary right now.
Well, and back then, the top grossing movies in '89, Mike, your Batman, of course, I mentioned at the top of the episode, right? And that was probably still high up in the charts at that point. It was only a few months after it came out. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that was still tearing it up. Lethal Weapon 2 had come out.
Okay.
Um, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade had come out. And then Honey, I Shrunk the Kids had come out.
Right.
So there's
Right.
some heavy hitters there, but still, James Cameron again. This is post Terminator, post Aliens, and yet he still
Right.
doesn't hit number one. Is kind of interesting.
And Avatar, Fire and Ash,
Hmm.
$250 million budget.
Right.
So we both know that means this has to do 1.5 billion probably to
Well,
make money.
what did the Way of Water do?
It did over 1 billion.
There you go.
Shockingly.
Yeah,
Now, the original Avatar, is it that or Titanic that's number 1 still?
I want to say Avatar.
I think
I
Avatar.
want to say if that's still the case, I want to say it's
Yeah, number
Avatar.
2
Yeah.
is Endgame, The Avengers.
Hmm.
They keep kinda, every time they
Teeter
re-release it, that
totter.
gets added,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering if Fire and Ash is gonna bring in that kind of audience.
I think so. I think there's enough
I
of a
hope
loyal
so.
yeah, I think there's enough of a loyal fan base for that franchise that it'll and again, you have the Disney park down here to kind of play off of that, so that pulls in a whole nother angle. You had mentioned earlier, speaking of Disney, you talked about ILM and their work on this. I did want to show another sequence in the film and this is a this you know this it's again you got to think 36 years ago what the technology
Right.
was. The internet wasn't a thing yet. We didn't have cell
Correct.
phones, all of these things that weren't really mainstream like they are now. So even though the visual effects in some instances are lacking by certainly today's standards. But, this particular sequence, it's probably more interesting when you watch the extras and see how this was done, how they filmed it, with the actors. But this is the pseudopod sequence in the film. And I don't know if you want to explain this, Mike, what we're watching here.
Yeah, this is the alien basically communicating with them, and this was really I mean, I found this groundbreaking at the time, and it's the water becoming a mirror image of what it's seeing, and in this case, it's Mary Elizabeth.
Yes, yes.
And
But
that's what I think of. When I think of The Abyss, I think of this scene.
I agree, and it's interesting because what the actors are acting to or reacting to is like, HVAC ductwork.
Yeah,
It's like
they
this just this
show
big
it.
tube
It's
that
so
they're reacting
goofy
to.
looking, I can't
It's
believe they weren't laughing.
it's very goofy. Yeah, I know. I mean, and that's when you appreciate the performances that you're seeing on
Yeah,
scene. Speaking of which, so let's talk a little bit about that. Some of the performances here. First of all, Ed Harris stars as Bud, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, who you talked about, from Scarface, legendary from Scarface, and so many other films, but particularly Scarface. She would stand out as Tony's sister.
yes.
She plays Lindsay, who's Bud's soon-to-be ex-wife in the film,
Right.
and there's a whole story angle there. And then Michael Bean as Lieutenant Coffee, kind of the head Marine that's involved here. And then I just want to give a special shout out to Chris Elliott, who we
Now,
love.
it's funny because I remember when this came out and Letterman, Chris Elliott was famously a writer for David Letterman,
Mhm,
and he did all sorts of he was the guy under the stairs. I mean, you have to know NBC David Letterman to know Chris Elliott.
mhm.
Funny, funny guy. And when I saw the trailer, I thought it was a goof. He was on Letterman showing the trailer of the movie, and I'm like, that's not
Well,
real.
and I believe during that appearance, Jim Cameron was coming out after him. I
Probably.
think he was a guest on the show, and Elliot was ragging on his performance, and I think in some ways the film. And then out comes Jim Cameron, and needless to say, they never worked together again. But prior to that, uh, Elliot says, I saw an interview with Chris Elliott talking about The Abyss not that long ago.
Right.
And he says that Jim Cameron at that time, when he was going to be on Letterman, said, "Hey, let's do a comedy together sometime." Cut to the segment you're talking about on Letterman, and that comedy never
Wow.
happened.
So he didn't know Cameron was waiting in the
No,
wing.
no, he did know. He did
Oh,
know.
and he still went off
And he
anyway.
still went off anyways.
Wow.
Now, what's interesting about I never think we'd go off on a tangent with Chris Elliott, but here
No.
we are. Only here on the Oh Brother podcast, folks, where you get these kind of deep nuggets, deep underwater nuggets. But he talks in this interview about the fact that there was a writer's strike going on at the time. So Letterman was shut down. So he auditioned for The Abyss. And
Oh, I didn't know this.
he was auditioning for a different role in the film. I forget the
Yes.
character's name, the
Yeah, I
the
know
the
that.
one with the rat that has a pet rat.
Yes. Yes.
And then he ends up getting this other scene where he's like on the warship up, above sea level or whatever. But so anyways, Chris Elliott, we love Chris Elliott, big fans of Chris Elliott. What was the
And
name of
his
that show,
daughter,
Mike? His comedy?
Get a Life.
Get a Life. Yeah. Abby Elliott. Love Abby
Yeah,
Elliott.
Abby, very
Mike,
funny.
Abby Elliott stars in The Bear. You gotta watch The
Oh,
Bear.
wow.
She plays
Didn't know
his
she was in
sister
it.
in the
Oh,
Jeremy
didn't
Allen
know.
White sister. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
All right, so where were we going with that? Oh, talk about the CPR scene, Mike.
Yeah, there's a sequence where I kinda alluded to it where Mary Elizabeth is getting dragged, and
Mm,
ultimately
right.
what it is her and Ed Harris are in this container that's filling up with water, and there's only one, suit, one helmet, and they're arguing back and forth. You wear it. No, you," and then she convinces him to wear it. "You're strong enough, get me across, I can stay alive because it's so cold."
Mhm,
Now, ultimately, he drags her across, gets her there, and he's trying to resuscitate her because she winds up drowning. And Ed Harris, if if there's people that are watching this that don't know who Ed Harris is, shocking to me. But Ed Harris is this intense actor, method actor, and he's pounding on her chest, and I'm sure that wasn't pleasant.
mhm,
She's got to wear contacts to make her eyes look, like dead. She's exposed
physically,
to
yeah.
the elements, plus her
Literally
shirt is open.
exposed,
So
right.
the whole cast and crew are looking at her. They're filming the sequence. They shoot it. Cameron says, "You know what, Ed, you got in the way of her face. Let's redo it." They redo the shot in the film, and they show this in the extra. You hear the guy, "We're out of film." And she gets up, storms off, and it took hours
Mhm.
for them for Ed Harris and James Cameron to convince her to come back. She
Mhm.
was done.
Yeah, Ed Harris says, she was saying things like, "We're not animals down here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
we're not animals. What are we doing? What are we doing here?" I mean, it's one of the greatest acting sequences you'll ever find on film. It still cut me to the core to watch that sequence.
And, if they wrapped up the film with that being the highlight, and then you kinda close out the story, I think this film works a lot better
Mhm.
than introducing these NTIs.
I agree. They could have done without that, or like you say with Spielberg, just the suggestion of it was enough. The
Yes.
lights and the reaction of the actors is all you need. I don't
Right,
need to
which he
see.
does that.
He
He does
does.
that, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden, he
E.T.
has to show it. Yeah,
It's E.T.
it
Yeah.
becomes ET
It's
or
E.T.
Close Encounters.
Couple of other things I want you to talk about. One, Mike, talk about this here.
Okay, this is a sequence where you can see Ed Harris. Ed Harris wore a different, outfit than everyone else. It was
Mhm.
heavier, it was tougher to work in, but this particular, helmet, what you're showing is they fill it up with fluid.
Mhm.
And it's a fluid that you can actually it's breathable fluid,
Yeah, it's oxygenated, yeah.
oxygenated, and they
Right.
show it with a rat, and that is real. That fluid is real, that rat is real, it really and,
Took it
and
into
it
its
freaks out
lungs.
at first,
Mhm.
and then it gets used to it. Well, Ed Harris, that has a latch. His it's not filling up, but he sells it in such a way that you would believe it. And he
Yes.
still has to be on screen with his helmet with fluid,
And then get submerged in water.
gets submerged in water. And there's a sequence where he's basically being weighted and dropped into the abyss.
Mhm.
And to shoot that tank you showed early on in
Mhm.
South Carolina was not deep enough. So they had to shoot it sideways, which is
That was
remarkable to
that
me.
was brilliant how they did. I mean, there was a lot of things like that you learn about on the making of with,
Yeah.
the all the use of miniatures, Mike, was really fascinating
Yeah.
how they shoot some of those scenes, and they look quite good in the film, actually. They
Yes.
looked very believable. But yeah, that was a really fascinating thing that Cameron talks about. Somebody that he was connected with at Duke University who was the one that told him how they could do this.
Yeah.
Wasn't it that he saw that experiment done back in like the late 60s where he first got the germ of the idea to write The Abyss, I believe is what
Yes.
the story was.
Yes.
But to see, like you said, the way Ed Harris sells it, the method actor that he is was fascinating. I did want to ask you, I don't know if you remember this, but there's something, I don't know if this was just a bad edit or if there's something that I wasn't understanding here or some deeper meaning. There's a sequence in the film where, as I mentioned at the top, Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth's characters are soon to be divorced at the
Right.
start of the film, right? And they're taking shots at each other back and forth. And in one sequence, Ed Harris gets so frustrated with her, he goes into the bathroom on the ship and
Takes his
on the
ring
oil
off.
rig, takes his ring off, throws it down the toilet, then decides to, nah, he made a mistake. He goes, but he second guesses himself, goes into the toilet, pulls out the ring, and his hand is blue from the toilet water,
Yes.
right? Well, later in the film, after the scene that you just described, the CPR scene, he's having a moment with her. She's in a hospital bed and they're having this conversation, and his hand is still blue.
Yeah, and that's because that's not a bad edit. That blue stays with you. Like, when you go
You th
into,
you think that's all it was? I mean, it certainly wasn't as blue as you see it here when he first pulls it out of the toilet.
no, but it's not like you can just wash it off. When you go
Right.
if you use a restroom on an airline,
Mike's like, "Folks, trust me, I've stuck my hands in the toilet numerous times. I know
I've
what I'm talking about." Yeah,
like
Jim
those
Cameron might know engineering. I know blue toilet water.
those porta potties you see at concerts,
Oh,
which
that's true.
I'd rather go in my pants than use one of those things. If you stuck your hand in, that's what's in there. It's
Mhm.
this I don't know what it's called. This somebody's gonna know what it's called. This
Yeah.
is
It's not
goo,
oxygenated, folks, so don't
and it
drink it.
does. It instantly stains your hand, and it
Mhm.
takes, like, weeks to get it off.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not there was a scene in between where all of a sudden his hand's clean and then blue again, that's a
Uh
bad edit.
I think maybe, but I'm not gonna make that claim right now. I can't go back and tell you that. But, listen, we could spend hours just talking about how they got the film made, and it really we're not even beginning to do it justice. You just can't really grasp the level of difficulty that was in play here with the making of this film. It's just off the Richter charts.
I've said this before, and, as I'm watching the making of and what these actors, what Cameron, what everyone went through,
Mhm.
when we dog a movie or give it a bad review, there's a certain amount of guilt that goes along with it because the amount of work that goes into these productions,
Mhm.
the amount of hours, the amount of time that people work and slave, and it comes out, and goofs like us are like, "This is a garbage. Don't go see this."
Well, but yeah, so to be clear though, I don't think that's the case here, right? It's not it was less about that and more about the edit and the story. Like again,
Yeah,
lose that NTI bit at the end, that 15, 20
right.
minute social commentary, and you've got
But
potentially a film
I'm
here.
talking more general.
Generally, yeah.
Anytime
Sure.
I talk negatively of a film, I don't take light of what it is to make a film,
Sure.
to
Sure.
get a film produced, financed. This week, ironically, I watched Chris Nolan's first film, The Following, and I watched Peter Bogdanovich's first film. Those are both two of the great directors of all the great
Mhm.
directors.
Mhm.
And it was amazing to see what they could do without any money and their friends making a film.
Yeah. Well,
It's
that's it here. The ingenuity and like
yeah,
you say, it's we're not trying to be dismissive at all of that. Certainly
no.
recognize and value the what goes into, but there's only one abyss. I don't know of any other production that has faced the same sort of that
Well,
took
I
on
think
this level of challenge. It was
I
incredible.
think you gotta look to, like, Titanic and Way of Water, done by the same guy.
Yeah, but you're talking way more CGI and
Yeah, way
technology
more
involved.
CGI,
Yeah.
especially in the Titanic.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And
But
frankly, he took all the lessons he learned from making The Abyss
right.
to go on and make Titanic in the Way of Water. And that's why
So if
those
you
are
like
such
those films,
Mhm.
then this is a definite recommendation.
And I'm absolutely recommending the film. With those few exceptions and just from a storytelling standpoint, the film still holds up really well. It's a good story and the acting is fantastic in it.
Really good.
And again, when you if you get a hold of it or you can get, your hands on some of the special features, you really have an even deeper appreciation for how this film got made. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
no doubt. I mean, like I said, the actors, Cameron, what
Mhm.
they did to get this on the screen
Yeah.
is really incredible.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal feat. So check out The Abyss. I think we're both gonna, recommend this film. It's another long film too, whether you watch the theatrical or the special edition. So, you know, just be prepared for, a 2 hour, 20-minute ish
Yeah, and then
film.
if you add on the extras, which you gotta watch,
You have to watch.
it's
That's a
another
lot.
hour and a half.
Even more so if you go way deep into those
Yeah.
archives. Anything else to say about The Abyss, Mike, before we wrap it?
No, I just wonder if
Mhm.
this was released today,
Mm.
word of mouth would probably kill it. I
Because
just because
because
of
of that
the
ending.
alien, I
Yeah,
think.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And frankly, I'm not sure Cameron disagrees with that
No, because
himself.
he says at one point,
Mhm.
"If I could redo the last 40 minutes,
Yeah.
this would be a great film."
Mhm.
But he sticks up for the first 90 minutes
Sure.
because the special edition is 30 minutes longer. It's
Mhm.
it's pretty significant.
Yeah. Well, there you go, folks. The Oh Brother review of The Abyss, 1989. That one's in the vaults. Mike, if you're not subscribed to the Oh Brother podcast, first of all, what the hell are you doing? Second
I
of all, how
grab
can
my
I?
phone,
Oh, you grab your phone. I see. And let me guess, you open the camera app,
I open the camera
and then
app,
do you scan this QR code
I
right
just
here?
scan it, it beeps.
And there you go. And then you hit subscribe, and boom, you're done.
I'm
All right.
in.
That's way too easy, folks. So if you could do as Mike just did, I don't often say that, but in this case, I'm going to say follow Mike's lead and subscribe to the Oh Brother podcast on YouTube. We very much appreciate the support out there. We continue to see a lot of engagement there, a lot of support on the channel. So appreciate that. Also, for those that like to consume their podcasts in the audio format, we are on all the podcast players. So make sure that you follow us out there. And in the show notes, every episode in the show notes, right at the top, it says send us a text, and that's how you can reach out to us and message us and maybe request a film for us to review or just comment on the show or what have you. But Mike, our challenge still stands. Haven't heard from a single person other than me, I think, maybe as a test message, and then maybe our friend Johnny Durango, the great cinematographer. That's about it, and that was like 2 years ago. So if you're listening, in the show notes of this episode, click on the link that says send us a text and send us. I don't care what it is. Don't really care what it is. Send us a text. Tell us, was the Blue Hand Ed Harris a bad edit? Or as Mike said, is it just toilet water that just stays and you can't get rid of it like a bad penny? All right, Mike, I think that's going to do it for another episode of the one, the only Oh Brother podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, of course, is my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And you know that we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.